welcome to this episode of I Breathe, I DIY. I'm Sarah. Thank you for joining me. Today I am upgrading my son's old nursery basket to something more adult and sophisticated for the home. To do this project, I need to make a pattern using the existing fabric liner and replace it with this lovely jacquard tablecloth I found at my local thrift store. The first step to this project is to create the pattern. Remove the fabric from the basket. You're going to measure each piece. For this liner, there are 3 pieces, 2 long to create the 4 sides and 1 bottom panel. Give yourself enough fabric to sew your pieces together without making it smaller. For this project, I'm using 1/4 inch seam allowance. Write this down so you can transfer it onto your pattern. I added a 1/2 inch to the top edge so that I could fold it over twice to create a 1/4 inch rolled hem. This will give it a nice finished look. For the pattern, I am using wax paper. You can use wrapping paper, tissue paper, or even parchment paper. I prefer the wax paper because it's sturdy. Transfer your measurements onto the wax paper. I like to use a square edge to make sure, that everything is square. I find a black felt marker writes well on wax. The next thing you want to do is label your pattern pieces. For this project, I have 1 for both sides and 1 for the bottom. For your pattern pieces, you want to label them with your notes. For this project, I have what the panel is and the 1/4 inch seam allowance. For any other project you may do, you may want to add the description of the project to your pattern. Is there going to be a top or a bottom? How many pieces of fabric will you be cutting from this pattern? Once you have your pieces cut, you're going to pin them to the fabric. Cut 1 piece for the bottom panel. Fold your fabric over to cut 2 pieces for the sides, so that you are cutting 2 at once. Remove the pattern from the fabric. Taking the 2 longer pieces, pin the short edges together for sewing. Line up your fabric on the sewing machine to allow for the 1/4 inch seam. Then stitch a straight stitch. You want to reinforce the beginning and end of your stitch. When you start and when you finish, put the sewing machine in reverse for about 1/4 inch. With the side panel sewn together at both ends, creating a square, you're going to now add the bottom panel. Pin the fabric right sides together, working 1 edge at a time. Line up, pin the fabric, sew using the same straight stitch. You're going to wrap the corner, pin the next side, and continue on until the bottom is sewn. For the finished top edge, roll the fabric over twice at 1/4 inch, iron flat, and pin in place. Roll the fabric towards the inside of the liner, pressing and pinning all the way around. To finish this top edge, I sewed the straight stitch all the way around about just shy of 1/4 inch from the edge. This is an area where you can use a decorative stitch, decorative thread. You can give yourself a larger allowance to make a broader hem. You can paint on the fabric. You can get as creative as you like. Remove your pins. Most projects you would turn right side out at this point, but how this fits into the basket, put the liner in, wrong side into the basket, fold over to right side out. Thank you for joining me on this tutorial for I Breathe, I DIY. I'm Sarah. I very much enjoyed sharing this with you, and I hope that you find the tutorial on pattern making useful for your own projects.